but not until I am ready.
You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
Eu dei nothing. Eu dei nothing. Shut your fucking mouth. Eu dei nothing. Eu dei fucking nothing. Now what is you dei nothing?
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there. I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. Normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? MCR family? Another daily edition of Mixed Combat Radio, obviously live on YouTube, podcast forum, iTunes, Spotify, Art Radio, wherever you find podcasts. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter, and obviously we're going to be talking about UFC 236, Israel Adesanya defeating Kelvin Gastelum, and Dustin Poirier defeating Max Holloway in two epic fights. I'm still debating, as we were starting the show, which fight I like more. And like which one will be my vote for fight of the year, because it's probably going to be one of these fights that wins it when it comes to December time when we start voting again for MCR awards. But damn, we got some good action. And of course, I'm joined as usual on these MMA shows by the great, the illustrious, the Chewbacca of MCR, Mr. Fugatti in Texas. Fu, did this night bring you back to being a fanboy again, even though you kind of still are with Loma and now Clarissa Shields, bandwagoner, but this is one of those nights that just reminded me this is what it's like to be a fan again. Fantastic stuff. Fu, your thoughts, obviously preliminary thoughts on the card itself, at the night, your thoughts on how big it was for us fans of the sport to see those two fights and the way it transpired.
Man, honestly, I've been waiting to talk about these fights since they happened. We did not get to do a live fight chat because you had the barbecue, which I'm extremely disappointed that we didn't get to do a live fight chat because these were such good fights.
I know.
But hey, I mean, you got to hang with the homies. I get that. But the card itself, I didn't get to see all the fights. I was jumping around. I was trying to catch the top boxing matches that were on, and then catch this card.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed everything except for the main events. So I'll have to go back and watch the other ones. But the two main events were, I mean, in any combat sport, I think two of the best fights of the year. And I would say that Adesanya and Gastelum fight was, that's one of my top fights of all time, probably. That was just such a good fight.
And it definitely had the best ebbs and flows. We're gonna start with that fight in particular. And then go to the main event, and then any sort of particular highlights of the card itself that I'll go into, and then some of the bigger news topics of the day. That's sort of the rundown of the show. So if you have any idea of what you guys want, again, call in number 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. If you're international, call in on Skype. Add Mixed Combat Radio on Skype. But let's get into that co-main event. Israel Adesanya defeating Kelvin Gastelum via, was it unanimous decision? I think it was. Yes, unanimous decision. All scorecards were 48-46, which I think were absolutely right. Surprising that the two title fights were perfectly scored when the rest of the card had really bad scorecards throughout, but it's a side topic for another time or later down the show. But Adesanya, obviously he came in here and he faced adversity early in the first round. He was dropped in the first round. And then the second, third round, he obviously sort of found his groove, found his timing better. I think he was able to read Kelvin Gastelum's defensive patterns a little bit better in that second and third round. But obviously we know that Gastelum's boxing ability has always been good. And I think in this fight it showed that it is really, really good. Gastelum may be fourth or fifth best grappler in the division, but pure boxing ability, pure timing, pure combination work, he's third behind probably Adesanya and Whitaker right now in all intents and purposes. Let's be honest about it. He outstruck Chris Weidman. It wasn't until obviously Weidman took it to the ground and was able to impose his size, his better grappling ability on Gastelum that he was able to beat Gastelum. But obviously in this fight, for those that, like me, always thought Gastelum was just a really good boxer, he elevated his game in numerous ways, defensively and offensively. And obviously in that fourth round, the dramatic head kick that came out of nowhere that hurt Adesanya, definitely probably a 10-8 round, honestly, in Gastelum's favor. And you could instantly see the wear and tear on Adesanya's face. And obviously the fifth round, the crescendo of the fight. And that's why probably this fight will probably rate better than the main event, because this fight continually got better. It didn't reach its optimum climax in a sense till the fifth round, to the last minute of the fight. While the Dustin Poirier Max Holloway fight, which we'll get to later, obviously, that climax was probably more in the first, second, third round of the fight. And the last two championship rounds were more of just a cleanup effort. But digressing from that point, Adesanya obviously came back from adversity in the fourth round, hurt, swollen, bleeding, and he demolished Gastelum. I mean, he obviously, again, the second and third round, he was reading Gastelum's boxing quite well. The head kick wasn't really there throughout the entire fight, and that's why I think it caught Adesanya by surprise. Even Adesanya's coach said it was surprising. And obviously, I might want to touch into more technical aspects of this matchup and in these rounds, but that's the gist of the fight. It was first round, Adesanya is dropped, instant suspense, instant intensity in the fight. Second and third round, Adesanya is in control. He's battering Gastelum, drops Gastelum, I think, in the second round, in the last couple seconds of it. And obviously, the fourth round gets severely hurt, momentum shift, and then the fifth round, still hurt, somehow figures it out, digs deep, finds that championship will, and continued to drop Gastelum. And then even in the grappling exchanges, did fantastic. The triangle choke that he almost landed in the fifth round was beautiful. So much to love about this fight. Fu, I can talk literally hours about this, so I'll go to you before I take up your entire show. Go. I mean, your thoughts on the individual rounds, the aspect of this fight, get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Man, we were shocked immediately, right, that Gastelum knocked him down in the first round.
Clean.
I mean, I thought he was going to put him out in the first round. There was a moment where like he fell on the cage and you're like, oh, and Gastelum was going right for him. And then he slowly worked, like not slowly, but he like got out, shot out to the right of Gastelum and was like free for a moment, was able to compose himself. Right. And the thing I was the most impressed about, and it's something that we talked about, he has amazing takedown defense. But what he also showed, he nearly got a guillotine on him.
Nearly
got
a triangle choke.
A triangle choke, and he nearly darsed him at one point. Like, and he basically, if he hadn't hurt his leg in training, I think he would have got the triangle choke.
Mm-hmm.
But he said it was hurting his leg too bad, so he let it go. That he wanted to get back to his feet. But severely underestimated Kelvin's ability to get to Adesanya. I thought the reach was going to be a big problem. I honestly feel like, and Adesanya was very real about this, that he learned a lot from that fight. Like reminiscent almost of like when Linares dropped Loma, and Loma said, I learned something in this fight, right? Because I think when you're so far above like people in striking ability, right?
I very quickly, I think all of your references for the next couple years are going to be Loma and Shields in that order, by the way.
No, it's not. But that's the only thing that I could think about where like
Sorry.
Loma was levels above Linares, right? But he still got put down. And I think that's kind of where Adesanya, was in that moment where he thought Kelvin just could not stand with him, and then he showed that he could, right? And I think, we'll talk about that, Yogi, because we'll talk about Whitaker versus Adesanya, I'm sure, and kind of what we think about that. But I was impressed with a lot of things. I think the chins of these two guys I don't know how it didn't get stopped in the 5th round.
It should have. Let's be honest. Mark Goddard was very lenient on like that stoppage. Like on he was polite to Gastelum in a sense. Like that was like a mercy way of like, hey, you've been in a war. I'm gonna let this run for the next 10 seconds, even though you are out of it. You should not be taking any more damage. But I'll let it run the last 10 seconds so you go to the decision. But that should have been stopped
4 times, right? It was like 4 or 5 times in the 5th round.
Probably. And then you add the submissions. Yeah. So, he was finished. He was almost finished almost half a dozen times probably in that last round. And then probably, 3 of those knockdowns were within the last 20 seconds of the round.
It was insane.
It was. And, I want to touch a little bit on some of the things that I noticed from Adesanya that still are struggles, obviously, just due to his style. Like, he's going to have struggles with this. He is always going to struggle in the pocket, naturally. Not because he's not good in the pocket. He's actually pretty good in the pocket. There's times he was winning the inside game against Gastelum. There's times when he was going toe-to-toe with Gastelum and winning those exchanges. But I would say probably most of the time, he wasn't. Most of the time, he was still trying to throw straight shots when he was far too close to be throwing straight shots. And Gastelum, who had phenomenal head movement in this fight, really subtle head movement, but it was phenomenal. His ability just to slit off that center line just slightly to evade that right straight of Adesanya consistently was impressive. But we all know that Adesanya has the decade plus of striking elite background behind him, so he's able to make reads, make adjustments constantly at a very, very high level, more than some of these guys. So, yeah, Gastelum was slipping these shots, but that's a pattern. That becomes a habit at times, and you can tell that, especially in the second and third round specifically, because obviously the 4th and 5th round were far more back and forth affairs in a sense. And cardio is more of an issue in those 2 rounds, so they're going to be more sloppy. But in the 2nd and 3rd round, when they were both fresh, Adesanya was winning those rounds. Why? Because of feints. He is still the master of feints. Master switching stances, mid-combination, mid-feints. And he was able to then sort of collect enough data, in a sense, to understand Gastelum's movements, Gastelum's patterns. And that's why he was able to land that right hand more at will as the fight went on, because it was a pattern. That's why you saw more double and triple jabs from Adesanya, more triple and double feints, feint jabs from Adesanya to set up that right hand, all mid-switching stances. But again, obviously in the pocket, he's going to have issues because his hands are down. He's a guy that relies on reflexes, relies on really rapid head movement and lateral movement to get out of danger. And guys that have good timing, good speed, good power are going to give him issues in the pocket. And Gastelum did that, obviously. I think if Gastelum, also in the same sense to Adesanya, was a little more tighter with his shots on the inside. Also, if he went to the body more with his boxing, I think he would have been far more effective in this fight. It would have gave Adesanya something to worry about and another sort of read and adjustment to make when you're landing that left hand, Gastelum being the southpaw, landing that left hand in the body, then boom, left hand over top. Canelo does that all the time with his right hand. That's how he set up the Amir Khan knockout. That's set up the right hand for the Triple G fights, the highlight reel right hand that we've seen. He set that up by going to the body again and again for rounds at a time. Gastelum never really did that. He never invested into the body. I think that hurt his overall striking game. That's one adaptation, one evolution I do want to see of Gastelum, but overall, he looked fantastic. He was just a little bit less of a fighter, less of a complete fighter than Adesanya. I don't really have any further technical analysis of the fight unless you do, Fu, and if you do, go for it. But obviously, we do want to talk about what's next for both men. And obviously, we have to talk about the John Jones-Adesanya beef, which is now here. It is now a beef. It's happening. We're going to get into that in a second as well.
No real breakdown in terms of like the technicality of stuff. What I really want to say is like, I think the differentiating factor is Gastelum, where he is a very good striker, right? Mm-hmm. He still has to think about it. Whereas like what you see about kind of Adesanya is he doesn't. Like he just like it flows. And like you could see it, especially with the spinning elbow and just some of the really beautiful moments in the fight. You're like, damn, like this guy. And what really impressed me too about him is to get like tested that early on that stage and to make it through all of that. And like he said, like to come out in that 5th round and do what he did, that's one of the most impressive like final rounds of a fight, especially with everything he had already been through. Man, I think you don't have to question his heart or his ability to get back up from, being knocked down, or like he proved a lot there that you really need to see from a guy who hasn't had as much experience in UFC fighting at the top level. Like he's had a ton of fighting, but it's a different game in the UFC, So I think we saw a lot of what we needed to see from Adesanya. Obviously, I want to talk about Whitaker, Adesanya, even Yoel, eventually probably Adesanya. There's a lot of fights there, and then Jones, Adesanya is a thing now. So
let's first talk on Whitaker, Adesanya next. That's pretty obvious to be next. They're debating whether it's going to be in Australia or New Zealand. It doesn't matter. Wherever it's going to be in those two countries, it's going to be a massive, massive cultural event over there. Probably one of the biggest, I forget the exact terminology for that area of the world. Like Australia, New Zealand, like that's going to be one of the biggest fights over there in combat sports history. When you really look at it, I don't see how Whitaker wins this fight. I fundamentally don't see the path of victory for him. I don't think he's a better striker. I think he does do certain things better than Gastelum, but I thought Gastelum overall was the better grappler than Whitaker, so I would assume we would have saw more of Adesanya's weakness on the ground, and if anything, we saw him be the better grappler of the two. You can easily make the argument that he's a better grappler than Kelvin Gastelum now, and that's not ridiculous. I think that's pretty evident. On top of that, so Whitaker's chances of victory is small, and his path to victory is narrow. So, in order for him to win, he would have to box a perfect game. He would have to invest in the body a lot. He would have to take away the legs, the speed of Adesanya. He would have to wear on his cardio. He would have to find some way to initiate some grappling exchanges where he can wear out Adesanya as well. And that's just a really tough game plan for Whitaker against Israel, in my opinion. So I'll be honest. I'm picking Israel Adesanya to beat Whitaker here now. I don't think that's really going to change. I think it's the perfect matchup in the division for Adesanya to win the belt, in my opinion. I think obviously Yoel Romero, who you brought up, is probably the tougher stylistic matchup. But even then, I don't see anyone really beating him at this point. If Kelvin Gastelum gave him 0 issues in the grappling department, yes, Jacare, Romero are better grapplers. Even Weidman are better grapplers than Kelvin Gastelum. We know that. But the margin of being better is not that much, in my opinion. On top of that, I fundamentally, I shouldn't say the margin is not that much. It is enough. But I do think Adesanya at this point is rapidly improving. His game is rapidly evolving. I don't see that Romero's dynamic wrestling game is going to be as dramatic of an effect on Adesanya as it was a fight or two ago. Paulo Borrachino Costa, he needs to do something for me. I'll be honest. His best win is Johnny Hendricks still. So he just needs to do something for me. He does.
Another thing that I know a lot of the listeners were questioning, especially when we said that we thought he was going to stop Gastelum, they said, he doesn't have power like that. He's not like a power punch. I mean, did the guy drop Gastelum like 6 times in one fight with all punches? Like, he didn't really catch him with any kicks.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
Those are all straight shots, combination work.
So, like, I think we can say the guy has some power. Like, he's dropping, you know, someone who's known to be a tough dude and, you know, take a punch. So, I think with Whitaker that what Adesanya learned from Kelvin Gastelum is that he was telegraphing the way that his head movement early in the fight. They brought it up, right? That he was constantly like kind of leaning to the left, and that's how Gastelum was catching him so often, right? Mm-hmm. He knows that now, that he kind of had that same kind of movement, was dipping the same way, he was getting caught. He's going to work on that. I don't know that Whitaker has, Adesanya's a tough out. He's going to be a tough out for anyone. I think if you talk him going up to 205 and fighting Jones, that's a different story. But at 185, no. I mean, it's going to be a tough out.
The thing with Whitaker is that what makes him so much better than his competition is that he is a really good fundamental striker. His jab is fantastic. His overall ability to judge distance and to control the distance is really his best sort of attributes in his striking arsenal. But those are all things that Adesanya does fundamentally better than Whitaker. That's the issue. Whatever Whitaker does great, Adesanya does better. I really don't see a path to victory for Whitaker. Like it would take such a dog fight from him, and he would have to. He can't fight a technical fight and outfight Adesanya. It would have to be a dog fight. It would have to be brutal. And he's already been in a lot of wars coming up. So I don't know if this is another one he can take and win. Not against a guy, like you said, that's putting down Gastelum, one of the toughest guys around, over and over and over again with just a straight shot, a straight right hand.
And he didn't have his legs. And he said after the fight his leg was hurt. So I wondered why there were no real kicks coming, because he was really just boxing. He threw a few kicks, but nothing like normally. None of the like the spinning kicks, you know.
You are totally underselling the leg kicks. That inside leg kick. Yeah. That inside leg kick completely slowed down Gastelum's game. I think that's also another aspect that led to Gastelum not being as effective in the grappling department, because his lead leg was shot rather early. Like that lead leg, the inside of that knee was red and sore early. And
the kicks to the body. He had a lot of good kicks to the body, but nothing like maybe a couple of times he tried to question. I think 2-3 times he tried a question mark kick.
Yeah.
You know, but it wasn't like. Nor like he's usually like more like flying knees, spinning, you know, back kicks to the abdomen, you know, like he's really putting people back, you know, but I didn't see a lot of that. And I think that was because like he did mention he had hurt his knee in the training camp. So
I agree. Let's talk about Romero though a little bit if we can, just briefly. I feel like a lot of people feel like Romero is really the true test for Adesanya. Romero just got injured, or he has some sort of illness. He couldn't make the fight with Jacare, right? I forget what the exact reason was. On top of that, he's had weight issues. This is a fight that we can get hyped for, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, is it a fight that, if you look at Romero's history, is one that's actually going to happen? Or should a should a Whitaker fight than a Jacare fight be far more realistic? Or a Chris Weidman fight be far more realistic for Adesanya? And still deliver some of the questions and answers we want from Adesanya in terms of the grappling.
Well, I think for sure in terms of like the UFC and what they would want, I don't know that they're going to trust Yoel and with such a big star. Like, let's face it, Adesanya is now probably the biggest star in UFC that's active, right? I mean, yeah, don't you think so? That's active.
Dude, Khabib's fighting in September.
You think? I guess maybe, but I don't know that Khabib on his own is that.
A 7-month suspension is nothing, man. And Khabib is definitely far bigger than Israel Adesanya.
Yeah?
I 100 yes, without a doubt.
Okay,
without a doubt. There's a reason that a Conor Khabib fight did around 1 million more pay-per-view buys than Conor and Nate Diaz too.
Okay. Well, I also think that was because people knew that was, oh yeah, Yogi, you're right. John Jones. I'm forgetting about John Jones. Okay.
There's a
Jones
few names.
Bigger, yeah.
And it's not fair, but we do have, unfortunately, a pay-per-view number to look at for Israel Adesanya with the Silva fight. And that didn't do great. It did like what, 170, 160? It didn't do great. So I mean, internet-wise, he's a star. He does a lot of traffic online, without a doubt. Is he John Jones? Is he Khabib, Conor McGregor? No. Is he Dana Cormier? No. I don't think he's anywhere near those level of stars yet. Even Max Holloway. Max Holloway was, I would say, he was the biggest star of this event, by far. And him losing was a big disappointment for the UFC, I would argue. But we're going to get to that in a second. But before we get to that, let's talk about Adesanya and John Jones, this beef, because we have to touch on this before we get to the Max Holloway fight. We just do. I'm going to play a clip quickly of... I was supposed to play it before the show, but you obviously heard some issues. I was really pissed off about that. But let's play this clip. It was on the Ariel Helwani show on ESPN. So it's Adesanya responding to John Jones's tweet saying, "Bro, how you gonna call me out talking about you're hunting the GOAT and then call me a bully for replying to you? You sound like you know you can beat me right. You know you can't beat me right now. So if that's the case, keep my name out your mouth and we won't have these problems." And here's Izzy's response. If it plays. Come on. Thing's been giving me issues all day, Foo. All day. Till this day.
To this day.
Thank you. Thank you.
I got to get a soundboard.
You do. You need a Mac first. That would be great. You don't have that.
The Mac.
Anyways, talk about John Jones and Izzy while I get this sound bite up. God damn.
All right, here I'm gonna be, I love Adesanya.
I got it.
He's gonna get this work.
Oh,
I got it.
Not until I don't like bullies. I detest bullies. So he's gonna get this work, but not until I am ready. Not until I'm ready to give him this work. And dude, trust me, I can fight him right now and I'll give him work. But I want to fight him when I know I can him up. I'm still learning. My guard game is still getting ready. If he wants to stand up, I'll him up. Honestly, just stand up and to me. Look at the way he fought against Smith. Heart of a Lion Smith, but look at the way he's like, no thanks. But put it this way, right now he's the best pound for pound, right? Maybe. Asterix. Maybe. So I'm player one. He is the boss in the final game.
Don't be scared,
final boss. I still got some people to beat, some bosses to beat in between.
So obviously that's his response to John Jones. Look, I mean, this sucks. Like, I don't want to talk about this because it shouldn't. I don't know. this is a super fight that makes zero sense in my mind right now. Like, Izzy's not even the undisputed champion in his division, and John Jones has been tweeting about him for the last 7 days, all day. And I feel like when we are in a time where, like, Nigeria is on the map, right, in combat sports, right, where we have guys like Kamaru Usman, Tyron Woodley, Francis Ngannou, prominent black fighters in the UFC come out and all sort of rally around Israel Adesanya for obvious reasons. And John Jones is the one guy out there shitting on him, you know? Like, he's the Jason Whitlock of the group. And I I just don't understand it. Like, I feel like John Jones could play this so much better than this way. But then again, John Jones, I think, has sort of embraced his heel persona in a way. I think this is just him playing up a future big fight and trying to create some money for him down the line. And he's fully self-aware of that because he's a sociopath. But it sucks because I think, like, this could be a moment, like, sort of like, you know, when Kofi Kingston won the WWE Championship, right? Like, all of black WWE Twitter, the community came and supported him. You know, we have this one guy in sort of black MMA and Twitter, combat sports going against him. It just sucks. It just sucks, John. Like, you could be better than this, especially since he is one of the biggest stars. He is a star. He is a star, and he's not uplifting the next generation.
But what I will say, and I agree with you largely, but I think Adesanya was feeling himself. Started talking about John Jones.
No, he did. He did start it.
And he got John Jones pissed off. So honestly, I don't blame John necessarily for coming out and saying, like, look, if you don't want me to say I'll fuck you up, then don't talk about me. I'm not a bully, but you can't go on all this shit and say you're going to fuck me up. And then I'm just supposed to sit here and cheer for you? No, man. So what Adesanya, I think, will learn is don't run your mouth too far. There are limitations to your ability. You are not going to go to 205 and do shit to John Jones.
Well, he says he's not. He says he's
I
not.
know, exactly. But, you know, like, it's not that he was clout chasing, because that's not who Adesanya, honestly, is a star. He's fine. But he just got to a point where he was like, look, I'm the baddest motherfucker. I'll take John Jones. And then he's like, shit, probably shouldn't have said that. John Jones will fuck me up. And then John Jones now is coming at him nonstop. You know?
It's obviously different. It's not a one-to-one analog. But it reminds me of, like, when Mayweather didn't want to big up Clarissa Shields. And it was like, man, like, you could be better about it. And yeah, the Shields kind of ran her mouth a little bit afterwards about Mayweather, obviously, and that permanently made sure Mayweather was never going to mention her, right? But, again, like, there's a bigger moment here, guys. Understand that a little bit. Now, obviously, Izzy's always going to be a guy that's running his mouth. He always has. And he's been talking, he's mentioned John last fight, I want to say. Right? When he went on, like, his media tour after the Anderson Silva fight, he talked about John and that he had what did he do? It was like he mimicked John. I forget exactly what he did, but he was like, yeah, I'll fight. And then like pretended to snort a line of coke, right? Like something along those lines. And I get it. I get why John's upset. You're absolutely right, Fu. Like, I absolutely get why John is now on Twitter being upset, talking shit to Israel Adesanya, because Izzy's the one that shot the first shot. I get it. 100% understand. It just still sucks.
He could still be like the older veteran guy that says, like, yo, man, he's a young kid. He's feeling himself. He's doing really great, you know, but, you know, if he wants this work, I'll give it to him. You know, I don't think he really wants this, you know? God, James.
Just keep reading.
Just rolling in here with this crazy bullshit. You know, but I think there's at least like 4 fights, probably, right? At least 4 fights at middleweight for him that are really good fights.
Yeah.
You know? And probably a rematch with Gastelum at some point, right? I mean, that fight was good enough that people would probably want to see it. So I just don't want to entertain this because it's too early. It's too early for him. He needs to do his work at his weight and then move up.
James is always.
He's so crazy. I love it. He just rolls in. He's just like a fucking wrecking ball.
That was funny, James. That last one, I like that. Anyways, any last thoughts about John Jones, Israel Adesanya, the rising star that is the last style bender?
No, man, not at all. I'm excited to see the Whitaker Adesanya fight, like September or so, I think is what they're saying. So
should be a little bit. They should push that back a little bit. Look at Izzy's face, man. Give that man some time, man. The meme of Martin Lawrence when he boxed Tommy Hearns on the Martin show. That meme is still the best one I've seen by far, because that's instantly what I thought of when I saw Izzy's face, like in the 5th round. I'm like, oh my god, that's Martin. It's that bad.
Hitch when he eats the peanuts or whatever.
Yes. That's exactly what I thought of. But anyways, digressing. Main event, Dustin Poirier defeating Max Holloway. This was such a great fight, but obviously I feel like, I mentioned this earlier, the story arc of this fight was drastically different than the Israel Adesanya fight. I think that is, what plays into me, and I think a lot of others sort of finding Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, not disappointing at times, but like that 5th round specifically, that really sticks out in my mind. The last minute and a half of that round was Dustin Poirier attempting a takedown, air quotes, and contrast that with the last minute, obviously, of Israel Adesanya coming Gastelum, which was fucking balls to the wall, destruction and chaos. It's hard to pick the Dustin fight as the better fight, even though more strikes were landed, more strikes were thrown. You could probably make an argument it was a closer fight. You can probably make that argument. Like, the Israel fight was pretty clear cut, I would argue. Dustin fight, I would also say, was pretty clear a Dustin win, but up until that 5th round, it was pretty unclear about who was going to win this fight. Dustin just so happened to win that 5th round pretty clearly, in my opinion. But like the 2nd round, 3rd round in particular were pretty close, pretty competitive. 1st round, obviously, was 10-8 probably, even though there's no knockdown, because Max Holloway was hurt for half of that round and just running all over the place trying to collect his feet. It was, again, an insane fight, but the ending of it was a little bit anticlimactic, while the Israel Adesanya fight was complete climax at the end. And I think that's probably what plays into the disparity in our perception of those two fights. Jay mentioning earlier that he felt kind of, what was the exact wording of it? I want to find it because it was a really good point. And it's something that I also sort of felt when I was watching the fight live. I couldn't get as hyped for it as much because the Izzy fight was just so great. But digressing from that, the actual in-ring or in-cage story of the fight, Dustin Poirier was just too strong. On top of that, Max's entire game is predicated on being the bully, on being the guy that is in your face, throwing at volume, and you falling apart due to that volume. Dustin Poirier really didn't fall apart due to the volume, except for some occasions that he even admitted to, that he wanted to quit, I think, in like the 3rd or 4th round. And you could tell. There was that moment where he showed up, and I thought it was going to be over. I thought he was going to do a 12-20 punch combination, and it was going to be a wrap. And he didn't. Dustin came back, was connecting with that lead right hook. The left hand, obviously, was the shot that was really hurting hurting Max early. And as the fight wore on, I think that check right hook was really, stopping Max in his tracks at time. And Max, another guy that really is a rhythm fighter. He's a guy that needs to get worked into a pattern, into a rhythm. And if you upset that with either offbeat combinations, offbeat combos, counters, or overall just hurting him more, then he can never get into that rhythm, or at least not successfully get into that rhythm as much as he would want to. And I don't know what I want next from Max Holloway. I'm really conflicted about it. I don't know if he's too small in terms of power for this division, but he's a tall guy. I mean, he's obviously cutting a lot of weight for featherweight. I don't know what's next for him. Shout out to Max Holloway. That was a really heartbreaking loss, I'll be honest. I've always been a Max Holloway fan. But Dustin Poirier, salute to him. It was 2 years ago that he was knocked out cold by Michael Johnson. Cold by Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, who has like a 500 record in the UFC. Put that in comparison and perspective. And look at the run he's been on post that KO loss in like a minute and a half. It's been absolutely fantastic. He has really evolved as a fighter, improved as a fighter. And also something that was mentioned on the card, how much bigger he's getting. The size difference just in terms of weight was evident. Fu, your thoughts on the main event? Max Holloway losing via decision to Dustin Poirier, who really hurt him and battered him around the cage in a back-and-forth affair.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought that Max's I thought that his skill set was going to put him kind of over the top with Dustin, right? But what you saw is exactly what I saw, where when he was coming forward to kind of get his, like, you know, like he's like like that, like the little engine that could. He's like this train that just moves forward, and it's like eventually you can just never stop him. But he would catch one shot when moving in, and then would be stopped dead in his tracks. And then it was like Dustin's coming forward and just hurting him. You know, every punch Dustin threw was like, God damn, like, how's he taking these shots? That's all I could continue to think was like, how is Max still alive? You know? And then it was like the third round when he was kind of coming out of the clinch and caught him with that knee and split his forehead. Was that the third round? The third or fourth round?
I want to say it was the fourth.
Was it?
I could be wrong.
Oh, man. That was like, at that point, you saw just blood. I mean, it was, I don't, like, props to Max. He's a tough fucking guy, but he needs to go back down. I don't think he's, like, I agree with Jay that the power didn't like, he didn't,
at all.
He doesn't have what it takes to be there at this moment. Like, maybe he could get there and settle, but it would have, man, against the top, I don't know, man. Those guys are fucking killers. Like, you know.
And you know what? Obviously, the weight cut's a lot out for 145, but if you can make it in any healthy manner, there are contenders there. Alexander Volkanovski's there. Obviously, Yair Rodriguez getting on the men from that Korean Zombie fight of the decade affair. You know, there's guys. There's a couple names that he could fight at 145. In the meantime, build up some muscle. But the problem is he probably can't build up muscle and cut to 145. So he can't do both at once. So he's probably either, if he does make the commitment to 155, he might take 6 months, 9 months off and just build weight, build up some mass, because he clearly, like you said, like we've all said, just does not have the power for lightweight. If he goes and fights a Justin Gaethje, he will get overwhelmed. That's just going to happen. If he fights Tony Ferguson, he will get overwhelmed. The size and power disadvantage is just too much, in my opinion. He's too skinny. Just honestly, I was shocked when Jay asked, like, were we as shocked as he was that the power didn't translate? I was completely shocked. When that first, like, I want to say it was like in the first round, in the first minute and a half, there was a combination that Max landed. I was like, okay, and Dustin just like ate it, like nothing. And then you just look at the damage they sustained on their face throughout the fight, even though that's not a one-to-one director or indicator of who did the most damage, because some people guys can just cut up more easily. But you could tell, even though Max landed a couple more punches and strikes more than Dustin throughout the fight, you can tell who ate more heavy shots, whose shots were affecting the other more. It was really evident. And Dustin Poirier fighting Khabib next in September, August, October, whenever. I can't wait for that fight. All for it. And in the meantime, give me Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje for the number one contender fight. And Conor, go fight Nate. And then we have obviously the Donald Cerrone Ally Quinta fight, which is scheduled for like June, I want to say. So the whole lightweight division is set, in my opinion, and all those fights are fantastic. And I don't think Max Holloway really belongs with those guys at this point, just being honest.
No, I think he'd have to put on some serious muscle. And like you said, man, that's hard as hell to do and try to cut down to 145 to keep fighting and staying busy. So he would just have to take time off, kind of like Mikey Garcia did for Spence, where it just like he just took all those months to just bulk up.
George St. Pierre did for Michael Bisping.
Yep.
You know, like you just have to do that. Especially for Max. He's 5'11", man. He's 6 feet tall, basically. He's a 6 feet tall featherweight.
Also, here's
massive.
the thing. If you're going to be a guy who wins the war just of attrition and you win by accumulation of damage, you can't. There's things Max did that he really might have suffered more for against someone else, right? And that's he got hurt and he just kept coming forward, like severely hurt and kept coming forward because it's the only thing he knows, right? And if you're going to be that kind of fighter and you're going to move up weight.
I don't know about that in particular, though. Dustin is the better grappler and definitely the more dangerous grappler. Obviously, he submitted Max in the first fight, has a deep submission history. If you're Max, tactically speaking, you shouldn't shoot. You shouldn't clinch up and initiate grappling because that is actually potentially very dangerous. You're hurt. You're damaged right now. You don't have your wits about you. Your submission defense is lacking. What he should have done is gone on his bike. He didn't even do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly was my point. Is he's going to have to start fighting smarter. He can't just get into the telephone booth with these guys. He's going to have to like get better with the distance, better with getting some shots in, getting out, and then his game has to evolve. If he wants to move up, because he's not going to be able to bully them. He's not going to be able to push people back. Like you can see, like Poirier had great counter punching. Every time he was coming in, he would just wait, kind of like catch like the first jab would maybe hit, and then like boom, counter punch. Everything stops there, right?
Another thing, Max gave up on body work. He was doing fantastic body work in that second and third round. And I mean the third round, like halfway through the third round, he just sort of stopped with the body work. I think that was a big tactical error by him. A guy that is known to have fantastic body work, that fantastic body punches and combinations, and he was facing a guy that was the heavier hitter, and he wasn't hurting him up top. Go to the body. Another thing, lack of kicking overall. In fact, I would say Dustin had the advantage. I think he was doing some really decent leg kicks throughout the fight. Like you said, and I've said, Max needs to evolve his game. We've seen now the limitations to his game. And that's fine. He's a young guy. It takes you evolve after losses. It happens, but lightweight is, I think, the bridge too far for Max at this point, unless some drastic changes do happen.
Yep.
Any last thoughts on the main event, Fu?
No, just that it was a fucking great event. Like those two fights, were worth the money. I absolutely loved watching it. I think everyone else did. It's sad that I think Anthony Walker, like from Sherdog, made this point. That it's really sad that the numbers are probably going to be low because of the problems with ESPN Plus, and people couldn't buy it, and people were having trouble.
And it being on ESPN Plus only.
And so that sucks for these guys. It also sucks. Like, I don't mean to beat this fucking dead horse, but that these guys didn't get paid what those fucking fights deserved.
Kelvin Gastelum got paid $150,000.
That's insane, man. I mean, these guys put it all on the line, put their lives at risk, and fought
very quickly. The
best fights.
I just want to put it in perspective always, and in context here. Izzy and Dustin, obviously, I think, were the highest earners, each getting, $350,000 each, right?
Yep.
Anthony Crolla got paid $300,000 as a mandatory against Vasyl Lomachenko on a ESPN ESPN Plus regular event on a Friday night boxing show. He got paid $300,000. Vasyl Lomachenko, what did he get paid? Like a million? I want to say.
Yeah.
Right, he got paid $1 million flat, guarantee. Obviously, he could have got paid more than that, but guarantee got paid $1 million. The entire payout for the entire card, all the fighters' money combined, was only $1.9 million. The gate,
it's disgusting.
The gate alone for this event was $1.9 million. So think about that. The UFC pays for all the fighters' purses with the gate alone. They have all the revenue from the pay-per-view to touch into, all the advertising revenue, all the merchandise, all of the concession stand money. They get a piece of all that. Guess how much the UFC fighters get? None. And I want to say the only person that got pay-per-view points in theory on this card would be Max Holloway because he was a champion heading into it. So not only was pay-per-view poor, most likely just because of the circumstances, but no one would be getting pay-per-view points anyways. Izzy wouldn't, Dustin wouldn't, Kelvin wouldn't, and all of them are getting paid far below what mandatory boxing challengers make for title fights. To put that in perspective, sign your Project Spearhead identification card, guys. It's not that hard. Go to it.
They have to. And here's a big problem too. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know people hate when you get too political, but
quickly, hold on. 92 said that Loma got paid $3 million guaranteed per Dan Rayfield.
Damn, man.
So if 92, I'll look that up. But if that's true, he got paid $1.1 million more than all the UFC fighters combined on this event
for less than 12 minutes of fighting. My
God. On a non-pay-per-view, non-TV card.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. That when they just extended the ESPN Plus deal and then put all the pay-per-views on ESPN Plus to get more percentage points of the pay-per-views, and they did not disclose what the new signing was for, how much money it was. UFC has not released any of that information.
Yeah, it's all speculation at this point.
Now, the rumor is that if they go public, they have to release that information, which some people have thought they might go public, become a publicly traded company.
Yes.
If they do, they have to release all that information.
I was going to add to that because you sort of add like they may have to. I'm like, no, they have to. If it's a public.
Yeah.
I just want to add to that point.
Sorry, the maybe was that they may go public.
Yes,
if they do go public, they have to release all of that information.
Yes, that's the maybe part.
The fighters, if they do not, and I agree with you, Yogi, if Conor and John and Khabib and these guys who have control, have power in the organization, if they don't do more to help the how can you be a fighter and not care about the next generation of fighters? Like it's not basketball or baseball. Like these guys, look at Gastelum and Adesanya and Poirier and Max coming out of those fights. They have got to do better. Like there's too much money here. The UFC is guaranteed so much money.
Every single one of them should have got paid 7 figures guaranteed. Guaranteed. I know he is not the most liked person, and I make fun of him. We make fun of him. Brendan Schaub. Yeah. He had an excellent point about this, and I largely agree with it, especially if it's true. The numbers sort of being thrown around in the water cooler in MMA media is that the UFC basically is going to get paid around the equivalent to a 500,000 pay-per-view buy rate per pay-per-view event on ESPN Plus, guaranteed. So regardless what the pay-per-view does, regardless of how many people watch it, ESPN is paying them as if it does 500,000 pay-per-view buys. If that is true, and Brendan Schaub said this on his show, and I think it's absolutely accurate, the UFC gives jack shit about even the Conor McGregor's, John Jones of the world. They lost a lot of their leverage that they had just 2 months ago. And in a time where fighter solidarity, class solidarity in a sense, right, to go all Marxist on them, is absolutely non-existent, I mean, it's a really it's a fantasy to think that Conor McGregor and John Jones are gonna roll up into the UFC offices and go, "Hey, we're not gonna fight anymore unless you pay everyone more." Guess what the UFC is gonna do? Okay, bye. We're getting paid buco dollars for every event now from ESPN. We're good. We don't need
those
you.
guys just become scabs. Like John and them just go like, they go, okay, well, we'll give you guys something to just shut up.
Yes. Oh, of course.
Just grease the wheels for those guys. That's it.
That's probably far more likely. Let's be honest. Because most fighters are, and I understand, are in it for themselves. Shout out to capitalism, is what it is. But I mean, that's never going to change. I shouldn't say never. Be positive, Matt. Be optimistic. It will change. It's not going to change right now.
But here's the thing. I mean, think about, you remember when, let's say baseball, like they went on strike and they replaced it with just amateurs, I think, or something, right? At one point, wasn't it?
Yep.
And they lost tons of money and they kind of folded to the players.
They brought Charlie Sheen in or something. Like it was a wild movie, man.
There was at a point, hockey strike, there were like a bunch of times where that's how they got collective bargaining, right?
One time there was a strike in the NFL and Keanu Reeves became a quarterback. I don't know how that happened.
Was that the Necessary Roughness movie?
No, that was The Replacements, man. Come on.
Oh, The Replacements. Necessary Roughness is better, but whatever.
Damn, Mr. DAZN jumped off. I was about to go to Mr. DAZN after our talk.
What I would say is, here is the fact of the matter, and to again go back to like a Marxist principle or something.
Ooh.
All of these other fighters have more power than they think. Because if you're guaranteed a bunch of money because you have to put on all of these cards, guess what? Fighters could just stop taking fights. They could strike. There's too many cards they have to put on. What are they going to do? Pull a bunch of people into the UFC that nobody knows and they don't give a shit about? They're not going to be able to do that and sustain it, because a lot of fans would be like, fuck this, right? This is shit. There are plays for the fighters to make.
There are. They're just
but they would suffer.
They individually would suffer for at least the short term.
Yeah.
It's also plays that require a lot of people collectively working together, and a class of people that historically don't work together.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is that these people are innately built through the system to work against each other to get the highest purses, highest payday. That's innately what the system is. So obviously to then say like, hey, Daniel Cormier and John Jones would probably have to agree in this group to then collectively bargain and go on a strike. Imagine that happening. You know, like imagine Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman getting along together and working together on this sort of plan. Like, it would require a lot of people to put aside personal egos and pride. And let's be honest, Vu, and humans, pride and ego runs everything in our lives. Let's be fucking honest.
Who's the fucking Jimmy Hoffa of the UFC? Come on. We need him.
He's going to end up in a fucking grave somewhere. For the sake of time, Fu has to run early tonight, guys. So we're not going to jump into a lot of news. Mr. DAZN, I do see you. I will go to you in a second. I mean, briefly run through these news topics. Like, it's going to be... Whew.
And I do apologize, guys, but my brother is in the ER. He is having like a minor surgery. It's nothing crazy. It's all fine. But he's going to be by himself, and I'm going to go up there and hang out with him. But, yeah, so don't worry. He's fine.
How dare you be selfish
do have to run.
And not want to do a 4-hour show talking about John Jones versus Israel Adesanya, you fucking fake
It sucks,
fan.
too, because I was so stoked to talk about these two fights and get really in-depth, because this was like the best fights of the weekend. They were good fights. Like, Loma fought, Clarissa Shields had a fucking stellar performance, but these two fights were just amazing.
If you haven't yet, go check out the free Patreon preview where me and Fu ranted about the misogyny in boxing. I know we ruffled feathers. I know we have listeners probably listen to this show that did not like our takes on that, but go listen to it.
Yeah.
There is a point. If talking about how women should be treated equal makes you uncomfortable and upset, there's a value into still listen to that and to actually probably push yourself to be more uncomfortable. Let's be honest. But let's run through these
and
news.
to push us to be more uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
It's fine too.
Absolutely.
Give us your takes.
Absolutely. It's just your take's wrong. Let's run through these news topics. John Jones is not the only one taking shots at Mr. Israel Adesanya, the new interim champ. Paulo Bochino Costa is also taking some shots. Exact words are, really, this is the interim fake champion? Ha, ha, ha. No doubt this weight division has already been better than this shit. Enjoy this while you can, man. I really hope that you can take the real belt one day to meet me. Note, and I am not the Gastelum. Hashtag nightmare. Hashtag the eraser. Quickly, because I don't care as much in MMA as in boxing about like managers and promoters and stuff because it's less of a big deal, right? This smells like Ali Abdelaziz, right? Like that's an Ali tweet, right? Come on, that can't be bullshit.
He just runs everyone's Twitter.
He
If
does.
He's like their guy. He just runs it.
He does. Let's be honest. The best is when he has fighters within his stable of a management company fighting each other, and he just goes back and forth from their accounts, tweeting at himself. That is peak greatness. That's what the Cejudo Marlon Mariah shit is. It's just Ali going back and forth on their Twitter accounts, talking to himself.
You think he's like the guy with like two keyboards at a
Absolutely.
concert, and he's like got one computer and the other computer, and he's just like going the whole time?
Absolutely, man. You have no idea. TJ Dillashaw released finally a statement and apology about the EPO. And I gotta say, the memes about chubby TJ Dillashaw, oh my god. MMA Twitter, way to go. Take a bow. Some of your best stuff, guys. Some of your best stuff. Let's hear TJ, at least for a little bit, bullshit about how he's so sorry.
I messed up.
Messed up.
And having a hard time trying to forgive myself for this, which I should have a hard time. I should have a hard time forgiving myself. I understand criticism and scrutiny coming my way, but what I really feel bad about is any kind of bad light I'm bringing on my coaches, my family, my teammates. They had no involvement in this, and I feel the worst for them. You know,
not the opponents.
Son that I want to be one more for.
It's okay, bro.
It's okay, man.
There's a lot of other kids out there as well too. You know, it's tough.
You know what else is tough is that sound quality. God damn, man. Get a fucking good mic on that camera.
What has he got, an Android?
It must be an Android. No. That must be like an old iPhone, probably like an iPhone 4. And like no mic on it, obviously. Just like out in the open in the backyard with the cars driving by, and you're now 200 plus pounds. God damn, TJ.
Just walking around like people do. Like I hate seeing people like this on their phone. It's like on speakerphone, and they're just like talking to people. They gotta like out to the side.
And their
like,
friends
why are you doing that?
Their friends on the phone, like, I can't hear a word you're saying, man.
Yeah.
Like, can you just please take me off speakerphone?
Yeah.
We're not gonna read this statement, but go read the statement from TJ Dillashaw's nutritionist coach, because it is the longest, most trivial amount of bullshit I've ever seen in my life, but it's hilarious to read. I think like the first sentence alone is pretty great. Let me just read it really fast. Like the first sentence is too good. Let me just get it up. Here we go. Come on.
I actually think Sarah Huckabee Sanders wrote that.
I like that. I like that joke there. That was a good one. People won't like that. Here we go. I love this, man. This is how he started the fucking statement out, right? And the second I read this intro sentence, I knew I was in for a good one, right? The training lab in no way condones or encourages our family of athletes worldwide to partake in the perilous downward spiraling helix of synthetic performance enhancement. And I read that and I'm like, oh my God. I want to interview this man and just make fun of him on the low for the entire interview.
That's like Francis Crick and Watson riding like the double helix or something, you know?
God.
Like
Also, just went through the news as fast as possible. BJ Penn, for those who don't know, BJ Penn is now, I don't know the exact particulars of it now, but basically his girlfriend and kids are now left him, and accusations of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse have been now laid against him. And they've been laid against him before. This is not the first time. No, if I didn't like that joke, you can move on. I've not read this statement yet from BJ Penn. I don't particularly care. I don't want to see BJ Penn fight anymore. I pray for his family and his kids. That's all I'll say about that. I have no time for these types of people anymore. Conor McGregor enters a not guilty plea in the cell phone case. Oh, no. But the video of it that did come out was pretty funny. I will say that. Go watch the video if you haven't yet. Justin Gaethje wants Conor McGregor or Tony Ferguson next. We all know it's not going to be Conor McGregor. So Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje is next. Luke Rockhold, Jan Blachowicz announced for UFC 239. Who's there for Miga versus Joseph Benavidez 2 set for UFC Minneapolis. So what that means, Phil, flyweight division not dead yet. So that's good. That's good. This is a clear number one contender fight that they're making in the meantime while obviously Marias Cejudo happens. So that's a good sign overall. Diego Sanchez, Michael Chiesa targeted for UFC 239 in Las Vegas. And also Kelena Kowalkiewicz coming back from a tough loss against Alexa Grasso, UFC 238. That's all the news of the day. Let's go to some callers. 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. International Skype, Mixed Combat Radio. And let's do this.
Yeah.
Mr. DAZN. I think it's Mr. DAZN.
Yo, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing today? It's your boy, Mr. DAZN. I'm back at it on MCR, one of the best shows in the world. I just want to talk about the topic right now. It was a great fight this past weekend with the rematch of Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. It was a great matchup. It was a great card all around. I would like to say Israel Adesanya, he had a very tough fight with Kevin Gastelum. And one thing about Gastelum, he was the Ultimate Fighter champion. And that always means something. That means a lot, just like Usman and Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa, he was also in the Ultimate Fighter, and he won the Ultimate Fighter. And he's my favorite fighter, fellas. I want to talk to you guys about Paulo Costa. How are you doing today, Fugatti? How are you doing, my brother?
Brother, I'm doing so good. I love your energy, man. Thank you so much for always.
Man, I love your energy. I love your energy. And guess what, Matt? I saw your weigh-in on the Boxing Voice, and Fugatti was right there by your side, man. I like the way you guys stick with each other. And Matt, man, I just want to tell you, man, you're a fucking dog. This coming from a dog.
Appreciate it.
I'm a dog. This coming from another dog. You're a fucking dog. You was in that guy's mug, man. You pushed that dude. Hey, Ness had to calm you down. I was like, damn, that's my boy. I was like, man, he's a fucking dog. I knew me and you be arguing a lot. I'm like, man, he had to be a dog. I was like, fuck. But anyway, back to the topic, UFC. What do you guys think about Paulo Costa? I think he's the Earl Spence of the UFC. What do you guys think about him?
Paulo is his name. Paulo Costa.
Okay.
Bohochina is his nickname. I think he's obviously an extreme talent. That's without a doubt that he is extremely gifted, has really good power, good fundamental boxing. As far as we've seen, good grappling. I wouldn't say great grappling yet or great counter grappling yet, but definitely good grappling, adequate grappling. I need to see more from him. I need to see him tested a little bit.
What about his? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What about his body shots? I've seen him landing some tremendous body shots.
No, he's an amazing talent. His boxing's fantastic. I cannot wait for the eventual Adesanya Bohochina fight for the UFC middleweight belt. When that fight happens, that will be amazing. I cannot wait for it.
I think Costa will knock him out. I've seen Israel and Adesanya knocked out by the Glory champion, the Glory light heavyweight champion.
No, Alex Pereira.
The Glory middleweight champion. Alex Pereira from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
He knocked him out, and that was in a different organization. So I believe
Different sport.
Costa. I believe Costa will knock him out. Costa's too much for him. He's way too much. That's just me. I think Costa will run through him.
We just have to see it. We have to see it happen, and we also have to see Bochina fight someone in the top 10. He hasn't done that yet. You know, like we just need to see some things happen. Like Adesanya looked great against the Marvin Vittoris of the world, right? Like he was dominant. Looked great against the who did he fight in
Brunson?
Before Brunson though, the
Tavares.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Brad Tavares. He looked great against those guys, but we still wanted to see him fight top 15, top 10 competition and be tested. We saw that against Anderson Silva in a slight way, and obviously now we've seen it with Kelvin Gastelum. We've seen it now be tested and proven that Adesanya is elite. We just need to see more of that from Romero. We haven't seen him be proven to be elite.
Yeah, I mean, and you've seen this
and
before
also,
with
very quickly, Fu, before you jump in, Alex Pereira knocking out Adesanya in kickboxing doesn't mean that Bochina can, or that Romero can, or Whitaker can. Because Alex Pereira is one of the best kickboxers on the planet right now. And that is just a different sport.
Yeah. Also, if you think about it like this, Mr. DAZN, like look at like a guy like Michael Venom Page, right? Everyone was like, "Oh, he's amazing, he's amazing, he's amazing." And then his last fight, everyone's kind of like, "Whoa, shit, this guy may not even be like top 20, man, top 15, you know, like in the world." So it happens sometimes where that subpar competition makes guys look really, really good. And then
Jamie Munguia
get in there with a real one and you get fucked up, you know?
He talked about Munguia. Munguia won that fight. He outlanded Dennis Hogan.
Oh,
He's
damn.
the champion fighting in his country. He's a champion in his country fighting. And you think he outthrew him. He threw more punches and outlanded him. He's the more busier fighter, and he's the champion. You have to beat the champion. At least knock him down. He wasn't even knocked.
Mr. DAZN, you can. I'll give you that. Sure, we can say that Munguia beat Hogan, but he's still struggling with Dennis fucking Hogan, my dude. Dennis Hogan.
All he one lost. Tough guy, tough cookie, a tough cookie, man. You know, these guys from overseas.
Can you name?
Tough, man.
Can you name one other person Dennis Hogan has fought?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like Hogan. He's tough.
He is.
Just
he was
like
good.
that guy Carroll, that Seven Farmer fight. He was a tough customer too. He's coming from I think he's from Ireland, from Dublin. He was tough too, man. These guys from overseas, they're real tough. You know, I think the American fighters need to step their game up a little bit. That's just me. I'm thinking the American fighter need to do a better job. You know, that's in both sports, in boxing.
Hey, but you do realize the American champ has better wins and looked better doing it, right?
I don't want to bore all the guys who came here for MMA talk with Munguia talk.
It's the same people. They don't care.
I got you. But I got you. Let me say one thing though regarding MMA. I feel like Khabib versus Poirier that's an easy win. Easy win for the GOAT. Khabib, the Floyd Mayweather of the MMA. Let's give him some credit. Bring him back to the octagon. You guys are holding him back. Bring him back. You guys are holding him back, Dana White. I'm sick of Dana White because Scott Coker is the man who made the sport. Scott Coker made the sport, and DAZN is here. DAZN is here to save the day because Khabib has one more fight left on his UFC contract, and they're trying to stall him. They're trying to hold him back, but guess what? They can't keep him locked forever. They can't hold him up forever. He's the GOAT. Bring him back. Bring the greatest champion of all time back. Khabib undefeated, the greatest fighter, a true champion, a true legend, a role model for younger kids. Khabib, brothers, Khabib.
Thank you.
Yo, man, we love you, bro.
Thank you for the call, Mr. DAZN. That was great. But anyways, guys, we're going to head on out of here because Fu does have to run. Hit the like button, share the show on your way out. Go to patreon.com/mixedcombat radio if you want to know any sort of what the content is like over there. We do have a section on our YouTube channel that is free portions of shows, free entire shows that we put out later after they've been live and on Patreon for a while. So if you want to get a glimpse of what Patreon content is like, it's on our YouTube channel. You can get a glimpse of it for free and then go spend $1 a month. That's all we're asking, $1 a month, okay? Which comes out to what, like 3 pennies a day, a month? Like that's nothing. That's nothing at all. That's less than a cup of coffee for the entire month. And you get 2, 3, maybe 4 shows a week, depending how active we are. Plus, after the Thrones podcast starting on Wednesday, I'm
so stoked.
That season premiere had me all nervous, man. My blood pressure was up, man. My blood pressure was up. I thought Tormund was gonna die, man. I really thought it.
Whew. I thought, man.
When that fucking burning child zombie was coming for him, I'm like, yo, it's it. This is it, man. Tears are coming. Didn't happen. Anyways, have a great night, great day, wherever you're listening. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms on social media. Foo, final thoughts. Where can people find you?
Oh man, final thoughts. We had 2 great co-main events, fantastic fights, guys. We are in I think a great time in combat sports. Boxing, MMA, it's all getting so good. And you can find me at Fugati MCR. No more underscore, just Fugati MCR on Instagram or Twitter. And yeah, man, Game of Thrones, After the Thrones Wednesday. Matt and I are going to break down the episode. We'd love to talk to you guys about it. I know we've probably got a lot of listeners that love Game of Thrones. We're huge on it. I'm very excited for this show.
Quick reminder for everyone listening out there that is not Patreon. You can call into the shows live and not be a Patreon member. The phone number is the same. Skype's the same. So when you get that YouTube notification that, hey, we're going to go live on Patreon, you can still call in. You can still call in for absolutely free. You just don't get the playback. You don't get the YouTube link, obviously. But you can still call in and listen to the show, give your opinions, call in on Skype, listen to the show, whatever it may be. So definitely there are ways around the paywall if that's an issue. And you guys can still get good content. That should never be a fundamental issue to not see the content we have, because you can see it. You can absolutely see it. Anyways, guys, have a great night. Prayers out to Foo's brother. Best wishes, all that good stuff. And have a safe night out there. Drive safe, Foo. Peace.
Peace.